Hi everyone, TardisGuy123 here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Shield of the Jötunn. Shield of the Jötunn is the final instalment of the main range 6th Doctor and Constance trilogy. From last year, it began in September with Criss-Cross, continued on in October with Planet of the Rani, and then concluded here. And it's written by Ian Edgington and directed by Louise Jameson, who is of course Leela, and sort of like has made her way into directing for quite a few Big Finish things. I think she did a couple of Companion Chronicles and maybe some Blake 7 stuff as well. I can't be too sure, but I know she's done some stuff with Big Finish before in that respect. But this is her first jump into the main range and sort of like mainstream Doctor Who releases in general, really. So well done to her on that, on making that jump and making it very successfully, I might add. And you know, also it's just great to have some stories with Colin Baker and Miranda Raisin, really, as they are great together as the 6th Doctor, Constance Clarke. I liked Constance when she was first kind of introduced in the Last Adventure, and then properly introduced in Criss-Cross, her first story chronologically, in which was of course set in Bletchley Park, and obviously she is a Wren, and she comes from that time period and everything, and I love that whole World War II period, really. I think it's very interesting in telling these stories, and I think the characters that come out of that period are very interesting. I love the whole Bletchley Park Codebreakers thing, so naturally I would fall in love with the character of Constance Clarke, and I think this story does do some very interesting things with her. But before we talk any more about that, let's take a look at how it is presented. So you've got the front cover before you here. You have one of the Frost Beasts, the Jötunn, right there. You have the 6th Doctor there looking rather concerned, and then Constance Clarke also looking quite amazed by something in the distance there, not aware that the real threat is behind them. And then you have the complex in the background there. And you've got this nice sew effect going on across. It makes the title sequence here look a bit more pale than usual, which is quite an interesting effect going on there. And flipping it onto the side here, have standard stuff, really is release 206, as you can see. Back now, as I say, written by Ian Edgington, directed by Louise Jameson. And also I forgot to mention, this is Ian Edgington's debut, I think, with Doctor Who in general, to be honest. Definitely main range, maybe Doctor Who in general as well. And as you saw, they have blurb and other standard stuff on the back. There's disc 1 with parts 1 and 2 on it. There's disc 2 with parts 3 and 4 on it. There are some other 6th Doctor releases. You have the previously mentioned Criss-Cross in the top centre there, and you also have the first 6th Doctor of Flip trilogy down at the bottom there, highly recommended. And now flipping this over, taking out the little booklet right here, if I can. Yeah, there we go. And there's the front of that once again, flipping it round. There's the back of it with the 6th Doctor title sequence and whatnot. Opening it up now, you can see on the inside there you have standard details, really. No writer's notes or director's notes, sadly. Instead, we just have an advertisement for You Are the Doctor and Other Stories, the next main range release, which was released in December. And sadly, it's sad that we don't have director's notes anymore, as I would have liked to have heard, well, not heard, but read what Louise Jameson had to say in that section. And now it's time for my spoiler-free thoughts on this story. I say spoiler-free, but it's mostly spoiler-free. Obviously, I will be referring to some things that you already know from the blurb and the trailer and whatnot, and basic details about this story. But you know, no big details such as who dies, who lives, or anything like that. You obviously know that Constance and the Doctor do survive this, because they do have another main range trilogy coming out later this year in November and December, actually, because it's a December double release this time. And it's a shame that they did sort of announce that beforehand, because it did sort of take away from the threat of this one. You know, you sort of like have that feeling where you don't have any more stories confirmed for that companion, and you think, oh, this could be it, this could be their lot. And you know, despite only being technically 4 stories for Constance, you know, the Big Finish could have made the move to killed her off or just written her out somewhere in this story. But sadly, in announcing that second main range trilogy, they have sort of taken away that suspense from this one a little bit. But yeah, nevertheless, looking forward to seeing some details about the trilogy. Really have titles and now, like Order, Absolute Power, and Quicksilver. Some quite short, snappy titles there, and I'll be interested to see what they're about. But anyway, Shield of the Jötunn. The story is set in Arizona, which, for those who don't know, is in America, and it's set in this remote research laboratory station where Dr. Hugo Mach is trying to make the world a better place. He's trying to scrub the air clean and sort out the particles using this machine that he's kind of invented. He's worked with Lisa Zetterling on it, who's his assistant, and she's a professor as well. So, you know, that's the basic setup for this. But of course, something goes wrong. There's a Viking burial mound uncovered, and then suddenly it starts snowing and for those of you who don't know, Arizona is one of the hottest states in America. It's quite southern as things go, and that's obviously not usual, especially in the middle of July, I believe this one's set in, or June, you know, sometime around there. And then obviously you have these frost beasts coming out, which is sort of like from Norse mythology, which comes from the Vikings shield and whatnot and everything. You've got this Viking burial mound, and Jotunheim is one of the 9 realms in Norse mythology, so you have these frost giants coming out of that, so that's quite nice how they tie that together there. And yes, that premise is quite a mad one at the same time. I remember when I first read it, I thought, okay, this is rather mad. You've got a Viking burial mound where there shouldn't be one, and you've got snow where there shouldn't be snow, and you have frost giants. Ian Edgington, you have got my attention with that premise. And yeah, it may sound mad, but I think when the story does take it as seriously as it does, you know, ultimately it just like feels not normal necessarily, but you know, yeah, I guess normal is the best way to put it, but it's not quite the word I would use. But yeah, it does feel natural, I would say. It naturally flows out of the story. It doesn't feel like madness for madness' sake. It doesn't feel like loads of ideas have been mashed together here. It does feel natural. It does lead naturally into each other, and I think that works quite well as a premise for this story. And you know, it's a very good premise there, I feel. I may have had my second thoughts about it first, but I'd say don't underestimate it, don't judge a book by its cover here. It may seem mad, and it is mad, but you know, it does take itself very seriously at the same time, and I think that's the way to do these ideas, really. It's not to play them up or anything like that, it's to take them very seriously, and you know, that helps make the threat very serious as well, which are these frost beasts here, and they are quite interesting as well. There is a twist involving them in like part 3, which I saw coming from a mile off, but other than that, they are very interesting villains, and the way it sort of like develops and how you find out more about them works quite well also. Character-wise, Dr. Hugo Mach is quite an interesting character, quite eccentric as well, and when I first listened to this one, at least during the first half, I sort of like was thinking, oh, this is grating, he's an annoying character, don't really like him that much. But then, like, partway through, there was, I don't know, something just clicked inside me, and I just suddenly started liking this character a great deal, and then listened to it again, and lo and behold, I enjoyed that character even more. He is a very good character, and he is very well played by Michael J. Shannon. I believe it's him who plays him. He's definitely in this because he's got the featured there, and I'm pretty sure he did play Dr. Hugo Mach. And then Lisa Zetterling as well. is quite an interesting character at the same time. And she sort of gets teamed up with Constance for most of this story, and it's very much double act between them two, and also a double act between the Doctor and Dr. Mach. And that both of those provide for some quite interesting comedy. Constance's side of it is a bit more serious with the Professor and whatnot, and them going into the Viking burial mound and all that interesting stuff as the story develops, and you find out things about that, and some mysteries are unfolded. Some facts that you learn from it, you tend to be rather inconsequential, but nevertheless, I think it works very well with when it comes to reveals during a little section set in the Viking burial mound, where you get to find out exactly what's going on, what happened back in Viking times, how this all began, how this got here. That's really where you get your answers, and I think that is a particularly well done sequence of this story. And it also provides a nice little cameo for Louise Jameson in there, uncredited, but nevertheless I'm pretty sure it is her putting on a voice for this particular character. He doesn't really get to say much, but is nevertheless there. So yeah, meanwhile, the Doctor and Hugo aren't getting along too well, really. But over time they do grow to respect each other, really, and become quite good friends by the end of it. And there's a nice banter going back and forth. It starts off quite bitter and quite nasty, but then as the story goes on, it seems much more friendly in their ways. And I think, it is some very interesting character revelations going on there in terms of Dr. Marks, and the Doctor says he underestimated him as a human being, and I think that was quite a heartfelt line, developed very well by Colin Baker as well. And some other minor characters in here. You have Bryce Foreman, or Foreman Bryce technically, but the Doctor jokingly calls him Bryce Foreman, and he is the foreman of this site because it's still under construction pretty much, but nearing the end. And he's quite an interesting character, but he does get quite annoying during the second half of this story, sadly. But that does provide a quite funny line where Dr. Hugo Mach just going on about, where did you get the gun? I don't allow guns here. And then the Doctor's in Arizona, I thought they gave them away in breakfast cereals. And, it's just fun poking fun at American ways. And obviously gun laws are very different from how they are here in Britain. But, just the way that Colin Baker delivers that is very funny, and I think it's just a very amusing line. And there are a couple of other things like that in this story, but it doesn't go all the way out to mock America or anything like that. And, the American characters, well, all of them are American except for the Doctor and Constance and the Vikings in flashbacks, are very well treated for the most part, and, they're just treated like human beings, really. Not sure where I was going with that entirely, but yeah, that's basically the way it is. And then other characters, you have the Major, whose name I've forgotten, but I know it was a Major, and he's quite an interesting character, and also provide, when he's talking to the Doctor and Constance, that provides a nice little bit of interplay between the Doctor and Constance at the same time, because obviously Constance is a Wren, she's part of that military world, and she's addresses him, and then the Doctor's he's a Major, and then she's oh yes, sir, and then she adds on, and it's quite a nice little interplay, but it works very well with those two characters and their relationship as well. That's playful, but at the same time somewhat professional as well, and I look forward to seeing how that develops beyond this story. And I do really like Constance. I think she's a very practical character. Ultimately I still prefer Flip. I think Flip is a better character, and surprising that I'd say that about a modern day companion, but she really does work very well, and I'm looking forward to seeing more, hearing more from Flip, because Big Finish have confirmed that more Flip is on the way. But for now we have Constance, and Constance is a very good character at the same time. Very different, it's hard to compare the two. So yeah, it's nice to have variety in there, and I think Constance does very much provide, actually brings out a very different side to the Sixth Doctor, and I think that's wonderful. Overall, this story may have some fairly predictable twists and some moments that are rather grating to me, but for the most part, this story really did take me by surprise, and I really did enjoy this one a lot more than I thought I would. And, I thought I was going to give this an 8 before I sat down to review this, But you know, the more I think about it, the more I think this one really does deserve a 9. Fairly low 9, you know, not right up there, but ultimately it is my favourite from this trilogy. It is a very good release, very well directed, very well written, action-packed, has a lot of tension going on there. I think the ending, the way they resolved the threat, was a bit ridiculous in some ways. But you know, as I say, when you play things straight and you take your ideas very seriously, those silly things can become quite serious at the same time. So yeah, that's all I've really got to say about Shield of the Jötunn. If you haven't picked this one up, I would recommend doing so. You don't need to have the 2 previous stories, you know, Crisscross and Planet of the Rani, to completely understand what's going on there with this trilogy, because it is very much standalone. So yeah, overall, that is my review of Shield of the Jötunn. Next up will be the review of Megalos, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you all then. So until then, bye everyone.
Burnt Oak, Arizona 2029.
It's a tomb.
A Viking burial barrow.
In Arizona.
I am Herger, son of Ulfric, grandson of Rithel, last of the High Chieftains of the North.
Look here. The chieftain was clutching something to his chest.
A shield would seem to fit the bill.
A shield, yes.
My blood, breath, and bones now stand watch in this alien soil, so that my people may be spared the evil we have borne here with us.
I think we have a means of combating these Jötunn, but even so we face grave odds.
The creature. It's outside.
It's a monster. It's killed 2 people already. It'll be us next.